This has been a very successful weekend. I think most of you will be proud as to how it went. Through Dublin yesterday, marking the occasion for the second year, and we hope to build on that into a bigger commemoration in Dublin next year. Last night in Newtown, we've been working for quite some time with Dr. Rihanna O'Donnell to do history of Seamus Costello. And I think anyone was there and heard his research to date, how little Seamus is mentioned, and to realise that for so many people who are important from their perspective in Irish history, even going back to our school days, Connolly wasn't introduced to us. We got introduced to Connolly and Mellows and Tone through our involvement in the Socialist Republican movements. Seamus's contribution, from as far as we're concerned, it was far more than being a party person. Seamus, I believe, was determined to have a revolution in his lifetime. To some of the old guard, they probably were quite prepared to walk away and chip away and pass the mantle to another generation. Seamus believed that people needed something to hold on to, and they needed to fight and commence their fight on the day. And he was the one for us who made a direct link between our everyday as it is an existence against the possibilities and the dreams of equality and justice in this country. You could say on that fatal day in Dublin, had he been shot by the agents of capitalism and imperialism, but I'm sorry to say, they just aided capitalism and imperialism because it was by the so-called left. How the so-called left could remove the greatest hope, from my concern anyway, and I'm sure a lot of people that do Seamus, he was the greatest hope for Ireland. He was the one in the footsteps of Connolly, the one who understood it better than anybody else. But more importantly, he understood people. He had galvanised people who had felt quite despondent for years into taking charge of their own lives in their housing estates. He even had people on muddy days lying on their lorries in the muck. But these were, as Connolly said, the greatest threat to capitalism and imperialism. They were what Connolly described as the greatest threat, which was the awakening of the slave. And there's no doubt when we look at our lives, that is what we are. If you think of the issues that exist today, how little people are on the street, the sense of hopelessness. We need to have our dreams, aspirations. We can't think, the adrenaline doesn't rush in the mode of a slave. It only runs in a make-up of a free man. And I think that's what Seamus really stood for. The awakening he brought to people who felt they had nothing to contribute. The sense of pride in themselves, in their own communities, and a re-emergence of what they felt was right and just, and that something could be done about it. But one of the most possibly overlooked aspects of Seamus was Seamus realised, even after all the feuding and the splintering, he knew if we were to achieve freedom, it could only be achieved on a broad basis, on a broad front. Now, I don't know the makeup of many men, but I don't honestly understand how anybody who was ducking bullets and up to the time of his death, he was the main advocate of a broad front, because he realised none of us, not one group, could ever achieve this on their own. We must come to the realisation that it's only a unification of such groups, and not pseudos either, I mean real left groups, with a practical implementation on the street. We all know you could fill this cemetery with thesis on how we could have a free Ireland and what it meant. But he was one of these people who could actually take that parcel and make it work on the street. And every single person understood it, and the sense of pride they got in taking charge of their own lives. I think that's good enough. All right, Joe.